Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jordan. Welcome to another reading vlog. This is going to be a bit chaotic because I don't know what I'm going to be reading in this vlog. I don't really know what I feel like reading right now, and I've got some space in my monthly TBR to kind of read whatever I want, and I thought this would be a good time to start knocking out some books from my physical TBR. The reason I am sitting in my bedroom right now on the floor is because we are right next to my TBR cart. Actually, it's kind of a random like office supplies cart, but on the bottom is where I keep my owned TBR. This is literally all of the books that I own that I have not read yet. I believe there are 19 of them here. Some of them I do have kind of bookmarked in my mind for a future reading vlog, but the majority of them are books that I don't have plans for and have kind of just been lingering that I want to knock out from my shelf. So that is kind of objective number one for this reading vlog, is to knock out some of my owned TBR. And in order to make it just that much more chaotic, I decided to do something kind of fun and ask my Instagram followers to choose the books that I read, but not in a straightforward way. And also to make it extra tricky, I'm gonna do the books that are least voted for. Why am I doing this? Because it's all for fun anyway. I want to read all of these books eventually anyway, and I'm not going to have my followers choosing book titles anyway, so the votes are not really directly correlated necessarily to books that my audience wants a review on because they don't know the books they're choosing. Let me explain what I mean, because I already posted my first poll on Instagram. My Bookstagram account handle, by the way, is Sorry Booked Solid, but the sorry is abbreviated, so it's SRY Booked Solid. And I put a poll up earlier, I will show it on the screen here, where I put emojis for some books that I want to read, and the results are shockingly even. Only by one vote did the losing book lose by. I guess I could tell you what each of the emojis are for. So the first book is for The Last House on the Street by Diane Chamberlain. I actually don't own this book physically, but I do need to read this book within the next couple weeks for the online book club that I'm a part of. I am hosting a book discussion on that book, so I want to read it first to be able to generate some questions. But the other three are on my own TBR. The second option is for Jackpot by Nick Stone. This is a young adult contemporary book I have read from Nick Stone before and really enjoyed her writing. The third option is In the Quick by Kate Hope Day. This is some kind of female astronaut book, sci-fi I presume. And then the fourth option ended out in the lead, but I'm not going to be reading it, and it's probably good because I don't think this is the book that most people would think they would be voting for. But it is Arrival Stories, which is a collection of short stories collected by Amy Schumer and Chrissy Turlington Burns. Basically mothers telling their stories of how they became mothers. But if we are going with my theme of choosing the book that got the least amount of votes, therefore being the book that Instagram does not want me to read, it looks like I'm going to be picking up In the Quick by Kate Hope Day, which I am excited about. I picked this book up this summer. I picked it up purely because of the cover. I love sci-fi books, I love space books, and I needed a pink astronaut cover in my life. So let's go ahead and read the synopsis. This says, a young, ambitious female astronaut's life is upended by a fiery love affair that threatens a rescue mission in this brilliantly imagined novel. Interesting. Combining sci-fi and romance, it appears. You know what? I don't think I'm going to read anything else in the synopsis. I am just going to jump right in. This book is around 250 pages long, so it should be relatively quick to get through, which is good because I don't have the audio for this book. Hopefully I can knock it out relatively quickly. I will not be able to start this right away. I do have some laundry on the bed. You can see the basket that I have to fold and put away. But once I finish that, I should be able to start this book before bed. And then we will just see where this vlog takes us. I'm thinking I will do this for the next 3-ish days and hopefully read 3-ish books off of my owned TBR, or that I need to read for some reason or another. For the next poll, I think I will do something other than emojis. Maybe I'll do like Pinterest board vibes or something like that. But let's just go ahead and get into the first book. I will check in once I'm a little ways into it and can give you a synopsis. I'll tell you my initial thoughts, then I'll finish the book. I'll pick a next one. You guys know how reading vlogs work. Oh, and as I am folding laundry, since I'm not going to be listening to this book, I wanted to let you know I will be listening to my favorite bookish podcast hosted by my friend Gwen here on YouTube. Her podcast is called Talk Bookish to Me. Coincidentally, she just had a new episode go up today with my other friend Jessie from BookTube. Just wanted to plug it in case you were in the market for a new bookish podcast and were not aware of Talk Bookish to Me. Okay, hello, it is the next day and I have great news because I have started in the quick and I am enjoying it so much. I am only 40 pages into it, but I am like counting down the minutes until after work today when I can continue reading this one. I wish I had the audio so I could be listening to it throughout the day and getting through it faster, but I am going to just covet the time I get to read this physically. But this is following our main character named June. At the start of this book, she is 12 years old and she lives with her aunt and her uncle was a super famous scientist and inventor. And I guess he designed these fuel cells that go into spaceships. And when she was 12, the spacecraft called the Inquiry took off for like a 6-year mission, and his uncle had designed the fuel cells that went into that specific spacecraft. A little bit of time has gone by since that launch. Her uncle has actually passed away, which is really devastating for June because he was like her person that taught her how to tinker and fix things and take them apart and become like an engineer at heart. I love that whole portion of the book. But now it has been released on like the news and stuff that this spacecraft is having issues in space and it's like failing, and they think it has to do with the fuel cells. So now our main character, still 12, is trying to look through her uncle's drawings and things and figure out what might be going wrong. And things are escalating. I think she's gonna end up going to this space program at a really young age. And I'm guessing she's going to continue pursuing her uncle's inventions. I don't know if she'll be able to like save this mission, but I am just loving all of the STEM vibes in this book, all of the engineering talk, the makings of an inventor. She is gathering things from around her house and trying to see how she can put them together to like help her and her family with everyday needs. I'm just loving it, and that's all I have to say. So I am going to get back to this tonight, and I'm probably just gonna fly through this book and come back with my final thoughts unless anything happens in the middle that I absolutely have to update the vlog with. But I am hoping and assuming that my enjoyment is just going to stay high through this book, and I will just tell you about the rest of it after I read it. Okay friends, welcome back to my bedroom on the floor next to my books. We are here because I have finished In the Quick, and after I talk about this, I will talk about the next book that I'm going to read. In the Quick, what an interesting book. This was a complete roller coaster of an experience reading this book. Obviously, when I first checked in, I was loving it. I really liked the beginning of this book. I liked our main character, and I was super invested in what was happening. What's interesting about how this book progressed is that there are time jumps. I think there's like 4 or 5 different parts in this book, and between each part, either a significant event or a long amount of time happens in between. And I thought that was very interesting, an interesting way to tell the story, because the things that were important at the very beginning of this book, I was a little confused at if they were still important as the book went along, because obviously if something is urgent and a lot of time passes, that leads you to believe it either wasn't urgent in the first place, or it's just being forgotten about, or something. Like something weird is happening. And the tone in this book was just interesting because it was slow. We were following our main character during a lot of sort of mundane activities. Like I mentioned, she does go to this academy where people train to be astronauts or scientists or work in the aerospace industry in some capacity. And that was very interesting, but I was just wondering, like, what is the goal here? Like, are we just following her life to see where she ends up as an adult? Or is she going to try and solve these problems that she identified as a child? And I was fully invested the whole time I was reading it because I was just curious as to where it was going. Unfortunately, I wanted so much more from the ending. It felt anticlimactic, and like the things that I was wondering about didn't fully get resolved. We did get answers to a lot of things, but I still feel like we didn't get answers to everything. And if you know me, you know I love answers, I love resolution. So I'm gonna give it 3 stars. This is definitely not the science fiction book that I would most widely recommend to anyone who's looking to get into science fiction or get into space astronaut type books. There are some that I would recommend before this. I would really only recommend this to people who know they like slow, introspective, kind of ominous stories, because that is the tone here, but there is a lot of science involved too. So if you like both of those things, you'll probably have a chance of liking this. But if you need a lot of action or you don't really care for science talk, then probably steer clear of this one. But glad I read it, definitely gonna keep it because it's a beautiful book. And I do think this one will stay in my mind for a while, and I can see myself remembering it and thinking back on it, which I appreciate. I just really wish that ending hit better than it did. So now it is time to move on to my next book, and I did already post the poll. So this time, instead of emojis, I decided to use the color of the book covers that I wanted my followers to choose between. We've got yellow, like a sky blue, like a teal green, and a hot pink. I will talk through what each of those books are in a second, but I was quite surprised by the results. A lot of people chose the teal green, which I would say is the most like mature of the colors, and the lowest percentage of votes was by far for yellow, which probably would have been my first choice. So thank you again, Instagram, for inadvertently choosing a book that I'm really excited about. So the yellow cover and the book that won and that I will be reading next is Jackpot by Nick Stone. I don't know really anything about this book, and I'm not really gonna read the synopsis or anything. I will just check in once I'm a little bit into it and can tell you more about it. But Nick Stone is a Black author who has written the books Dear Martin and Dear Justice, which I have read both of those books before. The other options, if you were curious, were again Wonder by R.J. Palacio, a hard-hitting middle grade contemporary about a little boy with a facial deformity. The teal green cover, I had a couple people message me and ask if this was Know My Name by Chanel Miller, which it was not. I have heard great things about that book, but I don't own it or have plans to read it immediately, but it is on my someday TBR, like I would like to read it eventually. But the book that it was for that color is The Last House on the Street by Diane Chamberlain. And the pink book also was an option for the last poll. Also, it did not get chosen again, but it's the Arrival Stories short story collection about women becoming mothers. So hopefully I will be able to fit these ones in soon. But for now, I am going to get to Jackpot. I'll let you know when I'm a little bit into it. I can tell you what it's about. I can tell you how I'm feeling about it. Okay, same day, a couple hours later, I have been listening to Jackpot through Libby, and it's reading really quickly. I am on page 116, and it's pretty good so far. So in this book, we are following a high school girl named Rico who works at a gas station, and she and her mom and her little brother are going through kind of difficult financial times. Basically, Rico has to work a lot in order to help support her family along with her mom. She is a Black teenager, and her mom has insisted in them living in a good part of town so that she can go to good schools, but they can't really afford where they live. She has had a conversation with her mom where she's brought up, like, you moved us to this neighborhood so we could get a good education, but I have to work all the time so I don't get to study and get good grades and get the most out of this education because we can't afford to live here without me working all the time. And that in itself is very interesting, but that's not really the plot of the book. The plot is that Rico, like I said, works at a gas station, and this gas station sells lottery tickets. And at the very start of this book, it's like Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, and she is working and she sells a few lottery tickets, which is pretty standard for her normal workday. But one of the ladies that she sells a lottery ticket to is interesting, and she buys 2 tickets and she offers one to Rico, kind of as like a Christmas gift appreciation gesture. And Rico is like, okay, this is weird, but I picked this one. So then she takes it home. The next day the numbers are red, she doesn't win, but it's revealed that someone from that gas station did buy a winning ticket. And Rico is convinced it's the other ticket bought by that lady. So she is simultaneously trying to figure out if that's true and if that lady won the jackpot, won millions of dollars. Like, that's a very exciting thing, but then she's also kind of beating herself up a little bit because she thinks if she had just picked the other ticket, she would have won the jackpot and her family's issues would all be solved. she is repeatedly referencing, like, if I had just picked the other ticket, I wouldn't have to worry about these groceries right now, or I wouldn't have to be working today, or I wouldn't have to say no to my little brother for this thing he wants. She just has it in her mind that she was one split second away from her life being perfect. And I'm curious to see how this conversation continues, because I think a lot of us know or have heard stories that just winning the lottery does not mean your life's problems are solved. But that's not to say that money wouldn't solve a lot of problems for a lot of us, right? Especially for this family. They seem to be just so close to their breaking point that that relief would potentially go a long way for them. And then I guess where the story goes from there is Rico is trying to find that lady because no one is coming forward to claim their jackpot winnings. I'm not really sure what her intention is if she finds the woman, if it's like just to tell her, hey, you won the lottery, make sure you go get your winnings, or if she's going to try to get something out of it, or I don't even know if that woman did win the lottery, so she might just be chasing nothing. I don't know. I feel like this story could go multiple different directions, and I think it has some interesting conversations to be had no matter what direction it goes. So I am definitely interested to continue reading this book. I'm going to continue listening to the audiobook. It's only like 7 hours long total, and I'm listening to it on at least 2 times speed, so it's gonna go really quickly. So I'll just plan to check in with you once I have finished this book, let you know my final thoughts, and then I will pick the final book that I'll read for this video. Okay, update time. I finished Jackpot. Super quick read. Kind of conflicting feelings about it. On the one hand, I really loved the familial aspects in here and the talk about this main character and her struggles, her family's struggles with money. It all felt very real, and I feel like it was not just discussed as like a surface level issue or a black and white issue. I think there's a lot of gray area when it comes to making decisions about what to do with your money. And in this situation, we have this teenager who feels the very real implications of living beyond your means. And she has kind of her own philosophy or what she wants to do about it to try to get her family out of it. But she has a mom who has a different mindset, who she ultimately has to listen to. And that's a very interesting dynamic, that there's more than one way to address a situation or to live your life. And it was interesting seeing that played out from a mother and daughter's perspective when they had different opinions. What I didn't enjoy as much was the hunt for the lottery ticket, which admittedly is a very large portion of this book. It's what inspired the title. It's kind of what makes it stand out from other similar books to this. I just didn't care for that part of the story as much. It felt very unrealistic, not only because the odds of winning the lottery or any portion of the lottery are obviously very small, so that makes it unrealistic that it would ever happen to a character, but also I didn't fully believe how these teenagers acted was how real teenagers would act in this situation. I don't know, it just felt very like slow burn and thought out and methodical, and maybe that's me not giving teenagers enough credit, but I feel like really being in this situation would be a lot more rushed and impulsive, and I think they would make different decisions. But I am obviously not living in the same situation as these characters, so I feel like that's kind of a personal preference thing with this book. Some people might really connect with that part of the storyline, but all in all, I'm gonna give this book 3 stars. That feels a little low, maybe like 3.5 is more accurate. If you're a fan of Nick Stone, I still would recommend it as a book for sure, or if the general premise sounds interesting to you. And again, it was a very quick and entertaining read, so no time wasted, that's for sure. But now it is time to pick my 3rd and final book for this video. I have 2 days left in November, so I put up a poll on my Instagram and asked for my last read, should I knock out a standalone or start a new series? And I was very curious to see what direction this would go. I am primarily a standalone book reader, but I didn't know if most of my followers were also that way, or if people would be wanting me to branch out or something. I've only had this poll up for about an hour, but results are already pretty conclusive with 94% of people voting for knocking out a standalone. I guess my followers do know me well and do know that that's usually what I would pick, but for the spirit of this video, I'm going to be doing the opposite. So I will start a new series. I actually have a few series options on my TBR right now, but I did just post my December TBR and I put 2 series on that TBR, which leaves 1 series left on my shelves that I do not have plans for currently. So I guess now is the time. I'm gonna go ahead and start The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi. I don't know a lot about this. I actually got this book from my mom. I think she read both of the books in the series. It is a Reese Witherspoon book club pick, which I do have good luck with. I actually find myself quite enjoying a lot of her book club picks. So I hope that that bodes well for me here. Let's go ahead and read what this is about. It sounds like it's about a woman who is escaping an arranged and abusive marriage. Set in the 1950s, she escapes to the city of Jaipur. I'm not sure if that's exactly how you pronounce it. She becomes the henna artist who works for wealthy women in the upper class, and she gets told secrets and gives advice and stuff like that. Definitely sounds like the type of book I would enjoy, so I'm gonna go ahead and dive in and give it a try. I think I can get this on audio through Hoopla or maybe Script. I can't remember which one it was on. But this is my final book to fulfill starting a series, which is the unpopular vote in my latest poll. I'll check in once I'm a little ways into it, when I can give you a bit of a more detailed synopsis and my initial thoughts on the book. Okay, time to wrap up this video. Yes, I did say that I wanted to update you partway through this book, but I will explain why I didn't. First, I'm going to explain why I'm wearing a hat, and you might hear the sound of a heater. That's because this is our sunroom in our house. It's like an addition that was added on. We do not keep this room heated in the winter at all times, so if I want to use this room I have to like turn on the heaters and get it up to temp, and it's not quite up to temp yet, so I've got a blanket and my hat and the heater's still on, so I can at least get something filmed. But let's talk The Henna Artist. This book seems on paper like something I should have absolutely loved. The premise did sound generally interesting to me about this woman who is escaping an arranged marriage. She runs away to this big city in India and becomes a henna artist, where she becomes successful, it appears, relatively quickly. She earns the trust of her customers and starts to get some really wealthy clients. And it's revealed that she, in addition to her henna services, is also providing them like herbal prescriptive services specifically related to their fertility and reproductive services, whether they do want to reproduce or don't want to reproduce. She can help them out, so it's kind of like an underground service she's providing, especially because obviously female reproductive services are something that men really like to dictate, and especially in this book, in this society, that is at the forefront of the story, because a lot of her clients are women who are married to really wealthy men who feel like they have complete control over their wives or girlfriends or mistresses' bodies. All of that is extremely interesting, and that's not a book I've read before, not a story I've read before, a topic I'm very interested in and passionate about, and yet this book just did not hook me. I was struggling so hard to get through this one. I had the audio going and I was only listening to it when I was doing like really mindless tasks, so I was focusing on it, and yet my brain just kept drifting and I was just not invested in the story and these characters. The other element of this book is that our main character finds out that she has a sister that she never knew existed, and that sister comes to stay with her and live with her, and so she's teaching her sister like how she became successful and secrets and tips for living in this big city. I just didn't care about that sister relationship at all and their whole situation, nor about our main character's relationships with men. I don't know, I just didn't care, and that's a bummer for me, especially because usually I really can appreciate a slightly slower burn historical fiction, but something with this one was just not connecting. So I'm going to give it 2 stars, which breaks my heart a little bit. That feels extremely harsh for this book, especially because I've gone on Goodreads and looked at the reviews on there, and there are lots of people who love this book, and I love that for them. And I love that this is a series for people who want to continue reading about these characters. I do own the 2nd book, and I think the 3rd book is slated to come out this coming spring. But I think I'm going to unhaul these books. I don't think I'm going to read the 2nd one. And what a bummer, because they're beautiful. Again, set in India, not something I read about often, but I definitely am a believer that you should be enjoying what you're reading, and I don't want to push myself through reading books that are just not connecting with me. So that is kind of a downer way to end this video. And what did we learn from this little experiment? I should probably listen to my followers and not completely contradict and go completely opposite of what you are recommending I do. Which, did we know that was going to be the outcome? Probably. But I am glad to have read these books. These were all on my physical TBR. I knew I wanted to read them by the end of the year, so I am not mad by any means to have read them. Just a little disappointed that I didn't have anything above a 3-star rating. Please let me know if you have read any of these books and what your thoughts were on them. I would love to compare and discuss. Please let me know kindly if you like gimmicky videos like this. I know they're a little bit like clickbaity, and it's just fun to have like the title that's gonna catch you, and sometimes the actual content does not live up to the expectation. But let me know if you think that's fun, or you would rather have me just stick to like the very straightforward reading vlogs of like book of the month books and regular ways of obtaining books. I don't know. I like creative videos like this, and I'm thinking of trying to do more of them in 2023, but am open to feedback and ideas from all of you. But other than that, I don't think I have anything else. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.